I'll turn the recording. Well, we started talking this morning about George's hooves.
We did.
We did. It's very relevant to coaching and to all this kind of thing, though we do not normally use hooves in our consulting methods. But we can do, actually. Well, I can't very well, but Fiona can.
I suppose we could. Yes.
Tell us a little bit about George, because
yes.
And George and his hooves, and why we started this.
Yes. George is my big horse, who's just touched 17 hands, which is about, I think it's 5'8" at the shoulder. He's a very big cart horse, let's put it that way. And when he was young, he left his mum in a very traumatic way. He was 2 years old, and he was suddenly reft away from his mum and the only home he'd known, flung into a horse box, driven the 3 miles up the road, 3 hours up the road, and decanted into a very busy livery yard with dozens of horses he'd never met, people he'd never met, flung into a stable he'd never seen before, and expected somehow to cope, which he didn't, quite a spectacular fashion. 6 months later, he came to me biting, kicking. You couldn't touch him from anywhere behind his neck without him attacking you.
And it's a bit dodgy even up the front when he could see you.
It was, yes. As I said, he bit and he kicked and he meant it. He's what's called defensive aggressive, which means when he's scared, he tries to kill you.
Yeah, I can understand his point of view.
Yes, yeah. Yes. He's now 6. He was 6 on the 22nd of May, so he's only just 6. He's taken up most of my time and certainly all of my money for quite a few years now. Before anyone goes off on the usual, oh, you've got horses, you must be rich. No. Once you get horses, you cease being well off. Believe me.
You may have to be rich to get them in the first place. Or at least reasonably well off to get them in the first place. But
yeah, there is a joke that a horse in a field is a bankruptcy starter kit, and yes, they are. But there we go. That's my troubled teenage boy. Because at 6, he's only just coming to the end of his adolescent years. He's just about physically mature. Yeah,
and yesterday he stepped up another. I can do this kind of thing.
He did. He came to me with what I call his emotional toolkit completely empty. He didn't know how to react to things. This is new and strange. I must kill it. Was about the only thing he knew, and it's taken a long time to teach him to trust and to let people handle him. He's still very iffy with anyone but me. There's a couple of other people now he'll tolerate. So asking him to give me his feet.
Now, why did you have to ask him to give you his feet yesterday?
I'm just about to step back here. Horses' feet are like our fingernails. They grow. Hooves grow. In the wild, horses move about 70 miles a day. And just walking to find food and water and shelter and other horses and all that sort of thing. So they wear their hooves down. Now, we take horses and we put them onto a nice, soft, grassy field. We put them in a nice stable, and they do perhaps, if they're lucky, 20 miles a week. So their hooves need to be trimmed. Otherwise, they overgrow. They either crack off and lumps fall off, or they curl up at the ends. You've probably seen the cruelty photos. You know, where the horse can barely move and it takes months of rehabilitation to get their feet right. So asking your horse to give you his feet so that you can clean them out and keep an eye on them and trim them, and which is just like filing your fingernails. We use a bigger file. It's called a rasp. And I have a wonderful
how big George's hooves are, you know.
Yes, they're about the size of a dinner plate. I have a wonderful lady called Odette from a Barefoot Performance, if you're looking for a horse getting trimmed, who comes and does my other horses. She doesn't do George because George won't let her. So George will let me pick his feet up, just about. And yesterday he let me have all 4 of them, one after another, without trying to bite or kick or step on me or take them away and wave them in the air, which is something else he sometimes does. So obviously this got him lots of praise and pats, rewards, and he was a happy horse, and I was a very happy person. So yes, he is slowly stepping up. He's getting there.
And we were talking, what sort of set us off was, we were saying, you know, this is a horse, and you may feel that, well, that's a horse, I'm a person. Whoa, we're all animals. And actually, George's reactions are so like people's reactions.
He's responding to childhood trauma.
Yeah. And how many of us haven't had something at least a bit nasty or weird happen to us as a child, and we still remember it?
It sticks.
However long. And people sort of say, oh, well, you know, you can get rid of that. And I mean, I have even heard the word eradicate used by some people who I certainly wouldn't go to. You can't eradicate it. And we will never eradicate this from George.
No.
I on my side, I go to the other end of the scale of size, and I rescue cats. I can no longer rescue dogs because I can't take them for walks. I can't look after them properly, but I can rescue cats, and they come to me with all these traumas, the same, don't they, Fiona? I mean, I've met many of my cats, and I mean, one of the worst was the two gingers. You remember Goldie and Star?
Yeah. Yes.
And they'd been got as kittens for Christmas, and the family had decided they were bored with them, or the kids got bored with them. And I think it was about the end of January, they threw them out in a black plastic bin bag, a tough one, for the crusher van.
Mm.
Now, you may not know this, but what happens, you know, they tip your stuff in the bin, and then the lid thing comes down, and it crushes everything to make room for the next.
Yep.
The kittens were still alive.
Mm. This happens all the time.
They did not go in the crusher because obviously a friend of mine who lived down the road, she'd been keeping an eye on them, worrying. She's a cat rescue person. This was back in Herefordshire. And she saw them, and she just went up there and grabbed the plastic bag and ran home. And knowing her, she would have dared anybody to try and stop her. And I would not have done. I would not have tried. But nobody did. And then, you know, we got in touch, and she said, I think I've got your cats. And that was that. But poor little souls. I mean, probably they'd been pulled around by the kids anyway, because if you can think of doing that to your cats because you don't want them, then probably you haven't really got much idea how to be nice to them. And they were in a bad way. The current lady, who may be in, no, she's left again. I thought she was coming. She was chucked out because she got pregnant. Mm. And she lived rough and had her kittens, 3 beautiful kittens, successfully. And she fed herself sufficiently to keep her milk going and feed them properly for 2 weeks before Cats Protection managed to catch her and bring her into safety and look after the kittens or help her look after the kittens. So these things stick.
They do.
These are animal things, but you probably, a lot of you at least, seen the film, the beginning of Harry Potter, or read the book. And the film begins with Harry Potter being shut in a cupboard under the stairs. It's sort of amusing in the film, except that the police and social services in Britain, and I suspect in every other country, actually find this happens a lot.
Yes.
And this can happen. I mean, I've known cases, I have friends who are social workers. This can happen to a 2-year-old child. You know, I'm going to the shops, so I'll just shut him in the cupboard and he'll be all right until I come back. And there's even that kind of attitude.
Oh, yes.
They take him out, and, you know, the kid's probably in a right tiz, but kids aren't stupid, as you may know. they learn how to, what we would call shapeshift, react, respond, change to a form that is likely to get them the sort of attention that is tolerable, at least, if not pleasant, and to get them food and to get them warm and possibly even cuddled. You never know. The sort of people who will shut kids in a cupboard can also suddenly decide to cuddle them.
Mm.
So how are you going to take on that? You know, there you are a kid, and 1 minute you're being shoved in this dark cupboard and locked in. And the next minute you're taken out and, no, darling, no. I mean,
Yes.
conflict.
Yes. It does leave you screwed up for the rest of your life.
And these are things which need to be dug out. As a psychotherapist, I've done a lot of what they call deep diving with people on these, and helping them, I think, come to terms with these things is the best I can say.
Very often people will block it out.
Oh, yes.
I hesitate to use the word denial, because denial is just saying, oh, it didn't happen. This goes far deeper.
Conscious. I mean, to deny something, you've got to be almost conscious of it.
Yes. This goes much, much deeper.
Oh, well, many of my clients have not remembered the thing that happened. And when they do, of course, it's the floodgates in every emotional way.
Yes.
And this is not counseling, this is psychotherapy.
Yes.
You need to do with it. Yes. But yes, it's blocked out.
It's completely blocked out. Mm. And when you block out a part of your being like that, you lose part of your soul. Yep.
Just what I was thinking.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was actually writing a bit about it yesterday. Those of you who you know have read a bit about shamanism and things like that, you'll have heard the terms soul retrieval and power retrieval.
Yes.
And many people who have no knowledge of witchy stuff and shamanism and all that kind of thing, they think, oh, that's some kind of weird ceremony, probably involves killing a crow or something. It doesn't. Not usually anyway, and I certainly wouldn't do that. That is done by all these weird pagan people. Oh no.
No, it's done. It is done by weird pagan people. It is also done by psychotherapists.
Yeah,
that's what psychotherapy is.
Yeah. And it can be done by a good coach. And both of us have done it with coaching clients who are not particularly pagan and not particularly shaman or anything like that.
Yes.
But they come to realize, and it actually sort of opens their vision, because after 3 or 4 sessions, they can sort of, sometimes sooner, they can sort of get to the stage of, is this woo-woo witchy stuff you're doing with me? And I sort of go, well, what's woo-woo about it? You know, I mean, this is stuff that's got buried. This is something that happened, you know, when you were 7 and you've totally forgotten about it. You pushed it away, you've managed not to think about it, but it's still there lurking and grinding underneath, and it sets other things off.
It also continues to shape your behavior.
Exactly.
Until you deal with it, it will keep coming back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, I joke about George and say by the time he's 20, he may have got over his bad start when he was 2. But on the other hand, it's not a joke.
No. And it's not, I mean, even I sometimes hesitate to use the word get over. I think get through. So you sort of find you can remember it without going into complete trauma. And you can say, that was then, this is now.
Yes. Sometimes I use the phrase grow through.
Yes, that's a good one. Yeah.
Because in a sense, all those past traumas, they box you in.
They do.
And you can't grow until you've dealt with them. It's a bit like a bonsai tree. You know, they carefully wind wire around you to force you into the right shape. If you unwind that wire, it takes time for the tree to grow.
Yeah,
it will.
And also, and I have actually seen this done. I won't buy a bonsai tree. I won't do that kind of thing. But I know someone who has actually did bonsai rescue, which was absolutely gorgeous. But they would help the tree to become, this tiny little miniature pine tree thing, to become a proper pine tree. It never could become a proper pine tree like one who hadn't been bonsai.
No, they can't.
Always twisty bits. It couldn't make roots the way it should have done if it had been started young, properly. It couldn't grow as tall as it should do.
But that is, it's still better than where it was.
Oh, it was. And they were lovely, and she had a big garden, and she actually planted them after she gradually worked them through. And I mean, you can't just pick it out of its pot and bung it in the garden either.
No, they'll die of shock.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like any other being who's suddenly ripped out of a bad place and plunked somewhere else.
Yeah. So it's really worth thinking about all of these examples with regard to human beings. And maybe you. As I said, most of us have something or another.
Yes.
Which, is blocking us down a little bit, is getting in the way. We don't actually know what it is. That causes a lot of frustration, doesn't it, Fiona?
Yes. Yes, it does. Yes.
You don't know what it is.
It might not be your parents. It might be something. No. It could be bullying at school. It could be an unpleasant neighbour.
Yeah.
It could be being faced with peace as a small child.
It could be somebody who's sort of being ultra kind to you, because there's sort of smothering kindnesses which can actually be very, very dangerous. But it can be. It doesn't have to be something that everybody can recognize as a traumatic happening.
Yes.
We have to get over that one. What is trauma to you is trauma to you.
Yes.
And it may not be to me. But that's okay. I can recognize that it's trauma to you. And we all need to get to that state. So she's just being, can't say she's just being silly.
This links into living your own life and not somebody else's script again.
Doesn't it just?
We do keep coming back to this.
Sorry, that's a route.
Yes.
Bloody taproot too, doesn't it? It goes all the way down. But it does seem to. And both of us having had a lot of experience, it just keeps on happening with people, they do this sort of thing. So,
even with, I'm going to bring up another of our joint bugbears, with the best intentions.
Oh, don't even start. Yes, right.
It seems to be quite often that people think they're doing the right thing.
Yes.
By trying to shape somebody else.
Yeah. But this will be really good for you. You'll really enjoy this. You'll get on well. You'll earn lots of money. You'll get a nice husband. You'll have your family. Your kids will really be happy if you do this. All of this from somebody else.
Yes.
And it takes away another bugbear coming up. It takes away all your own conscious inner choice.
Yes.
And so you think, oh, well, they're older than me, they're more important than me, their kids are doing better than mine, they've got a bigger house than me, their husband is apparently earning more money, they seem to have a good marriage. They may well not have, but it seems so. All of these things that you feel you don't have and you see in somebody else, therefore you give them a cloak of some kind of authority to tell you. And I'm going to reverse on that one in a minute. And
yes.
It's you don't live somebody else, don't do that.
You can't live somebody else's life because you're not somebody else.
Yeah.
You have to find your own life, your own way.
But how do I do that, Fiona? Because I don't know how to do that. Nobody's ever taught me. I've been living 40 years like this, and I didn't even know that I didn't ought to.
Yes, exactly.
Ring
And
bell?
so many of us are there. I just want to backtrack a moment to that whole, your throwaway line about that they appear to have a good marriage.
Yes.
Now, amongst all the creatures who share my life, most of them are prey, not predators.
Yeah.
Now, if you're prey, you can't afford to look weak. You will do anything to avoid looking like an easy meal. Which is why you get sheep farmers who'll say things like, oh, they just, they're absolutely fine. And then you wake up and they're dead. Because if you're a wild sheep, if you're the one that looks like it's not doing so great, you're first on the menu. Next time that a hungry mountain lion crosses the path looking for dinner, you're going to be top of the menu. So people as well will try and hide. We all construct this veneer of the self that I want other people to see.
Absolutely. Yes.
What's under it? We can't see from outside.
Not until you learn to, but you can learn to.
You can learn to. It does take time and experience.
Yeah. But once somebody gets the hang of the fact that they can be themselves, I mean, I'm wearing this top today because I felt like it. But I'm still the same person who was there in my PJs, about 3 hours ago in bed.
Yes.
But I've got different clothes on there. I've brushed my hair.
Yes.
I've actually washed my face, surprisingly. And so between being in bed, where I was totally happy in the pillow, with one arm around the cat actually grabs my hand in her paws and she pulls it onto her forehead and then she holds it there and she purrs. And she likes that, and I like that. So we lie there, in sort of mutual purriness, and looking a bit sort of, well, definitely pajama-ish. And but I didn't want to spend the day like that, partly because it's mildly uncomfortable and my PJs aren't warm enough for outside. They're good under a duvet, but not that hot outside. And I'm going outside in a minute. So I put on a different set of clothes, but I'm still knowing who I am. I'm still Ellen inside. And last night I had a Zoom call with a potential client, well, not a potential client, a lawyer person who may want to actually refer people to me, who he deals with. And so we were like, do we want to work together? Stuff. Which we actually do. But so I was that person for him, which is a bit different to the person you're seeing today, because
we all wear masks.
Yeah. But I'm doing it consciously.
Yes.
And Fiona's doing it consciously.
Oh, yes.
Not everybody does. Quite a lot of people don't.
A lot of people wear some masks consciously and some masks unconsciously.
Yeah.
We all wear some masks unconsciously.
And probably everybody wears some masks consciously.
Yes.
I mean, part of it comes about with, I'm going to work, so I'm putting my work clothes on.
You put your work face on as well.
Yeah, you do. And your work mentality.
Yes. If you're a parent, you've just stubbed your toe, but you don't want to let out a string of expletives in front of the baby. That's another mask that you put on consciously. And you grit your teeth and you smile and you go, it doesn't hurt that much. Yeah. And then you go out and pop face first into a tree where the child can't see you. But that's another mask that we put on consciously. Yeah. But we also put on those masks that, somebody says, are you okay? And you go, yeah, I'm fine. Everything's great.
Yeah.
No, it isn't.
No. I mean, sometimes how it's become one of the common greetings, and you either meet somebody or get somebody on the phone or, hi, how are you? And they expect you to say, I'm good, how are you? And sometimes I get grumpy. And Fiona's actually heard this. She had to bury her face in a cushion in the back of the sofa because I was on the phone and she didn't want to be heard laughing, because I thought, okay,
Yes.
you just asked me, how am I? I'll tell you. And I was in a bad state. I could hardly walk. My back was killing me. My legs, my knees were killing me, and my stomach wasn't working very well. By the time I got into about 5 minutes of this, they were wishing they hadn't asked.
Yes. Oh, yes.
But they were actually one of these sort of not quite telecall people, but almost that sort of person. They weren't that, because I don't treat them like that. They were a person who wanted something off me and wanted to work with me and being a nuisance. But that's another sort of thing. It's like, how about we just ask the questions that we want answered?
Yes.
And
on the other hand, sometimes it's very
force
useful.
people, because I mean, this is like forcing
Yes.
people to say, I'm good, how are you? When they're feeling,
Yes.
you know.
I have answered the phone and you know, known who it was on the other end and said, hi, how are you? You know, is everything okay?
Yes.
And the answer was no. And that's a cry for help.
Yeah. And so you sit there and you be there and you listen.
Yes. In fact, in that case, 2 hours later, I threw the keys in my pocket, jumped in the car and headed off hurriedly on a mercy call.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was about 24 hours before I got home again.
Well,
but that was needed at the time.
Exactly. And, you know, that's what friends are for. And
yes.
That's the difference. But even a little thing like, how are you? And expecting the person to say, I'm good. Is like at least requesting, if not seriously, strongly asking them to put on a mask that's going to make you happy.
Yes.
Long pause after those words.
Absolutely.
I will repeat them. To put on a mask that's going to make you happy. If you've imagined yourself doing that, I'm sure we all have at times, imagine other people doing it to you.
Which we all do.
And so we need to actually think where we are and what we're doing. And if we could all behave differently to each other, of course, a lot of these traumas wouldn't happen. But
yeah,
I'm not holding my breath on that. We are getting better.
It's what I call social coercion.
Yeah.
And when you put it like that, you actually find yourself thinking, I don't want to coerce people.
No. And most people actually don't want to coerce people.
No. But you have to be conscious that that's what you're doing.
Yeah. So part of all coaching, and this works, and you know, I work with stockbrokers and people like that. As I say in the website, I haven't managed a politician yet. I'm not actually sure I want to. But people are doing all sorts of jobs and living all sorts of lives. And this becoming properly self-aware, that's what really helps people to go, oh, I can move my business into this place. Oh, I could actually start doing that. Or I better stop doing that because that's getting in the way of me doing this. So your whole life and business situations change.
Yes.
Because you're conscious.
Yes. And you may also get the occasional person who goes, that's not the person I want to be.
Absolutely.
I don't want to be the kind of person who does that to my employees.
Yes.
Or my friends, or my family, or whoever it is. And people will actually pull their whole lives apart and rebuild them.
Yeah.
No one says it's easy.
No, but I'm on LinkedIn, and
yeah.
I was reading somebody's post yesterday, and this 30-something bloke, I would say, might be more, And he was saying how he had run this huge company and he founded it and everything like this, and he'd been making millions and all this sort of stuff. And he suddenly realized, just as you said, what he was doing, and he didn't like it.
Mm.
And also, he had no home life. He had no family life. He, you know, if he went on holiday, he was spending the whole time on the phone still.
Yes.
And he thought, oh, whoa, reversed madly. And he got himself out of that, completely out of this. And he now has a little organization which is about helping people do something or another. And he has a family life. He doesn't use his work phone on holiday. He has all the things that he feels that he wanted, and he has a balance through his life of the things that he likes doing and space and time to do them.
Yes. And he's happier.
That was his end point.
That's the important thing.
Yeah, yeah. And he took a photograph of himself as this sort of super CEO type, and then a photograph of himself today. And you know, he got an old photograph of himself.
Yes.
And the difference is really marked. One
Yes.
is much more, I mean, he's still smiling, but it's sort of,
it's a mask.
Yeah, it's definitely put on.
Yeah.
And the second one is sort of happy. Yeah. And it is one that he wears naturally, let's put it that way.
Yes.
As opposed to the back of his brain saying, where am I, who's looking at me?
Yes. So it's not easy, but it is worthwhile.
Yeah.
To be the person that you want to be, and not the person that other people think they should shoehorn you into.
Yeah.
No matter what their intentions.
Which, as we've said before, may often be good. But they do have this old saying, which says, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Worth remembering.
Oh, yes. And I had the question, I think every parent gets it at some point. What do you want me to be when I grow up? Well, there's only one possible answer. I want you to be happy. Now, fortunately, I didn't have a child who sort of floundered at me and went, I don't know how. She sort of stood back and went, right. Okay. I've got permission to be me.
And I asked my dad, I lost my mum when I was 3. I asked my dad this question, what should I be when I grow up? And he turned around with the answer that I use a lot in counselling and in coaching sessions is, what makes your heart sing?
Yes.
And I've never forgotten.
No.
Because I was at the age where, you know, all the other girls at school were asking their parents, and we were all then going back to say, you know, Mum says I should be a doctor, and Dad says I should keep horses, and, you know, whatever kind of thing. And it was lovely because it really worked for me. But it was the sort of answer you actually couldn't share with most of the girls at school, because they sort of go, weird.
Yes. Which is a pity for them.
It is, but there again is another of these social coercions.
Yes.
You know, that
yes.
I had a dad who could be a pain in the arse as well, but he at least wanted me to be me, and he hadn't sort of like set out a whole formula that I was going to do this, that, and other thing. So he had, and I grew up in that state. And he had gradually sort of done his best to help me to learn to put masks on consciously, even as a, you know, a junior school and as a teenager. It's like, now, you better not talk about this with most of the girls at school, but you can with Hillary, because you know Hillary's okay. And, you know, but that was, I was being taught young. I'm lucky.
Yes.
In that sense, most of us aren't.
When I was young, my mother used to teach piano, and two of her piano pupils were the daughters of a Mormon family. They were over from the States doing what they call missionary work. Basically means they moved to another country and they spent some time being Mormons in a different country and trying to encourage other people to become Mormons and so forth. But she was particularly struck by the fact that they were being trained in social manners. So that before they arrived at breakfast, they would have read at least 2 papers and have found 3 things they could talk about in today's news to start conversations off. Yes, this is exactly how I feel about it. These are people being conditioned. They're being trained in how to get inside other people's heads and mess with them.
Yeah.
And far too many of us have to live in a world where that is acceptable.
Yeah. I would add into that an amusing thing. I had a very strange, weird life, like Fiona. And
It makes us more
I
interesting.
had occasion to know boyfriends, a couple of boyfriends who went to Eton. British, the public school. Ooh, they were quite handsome and they were quite fun actually, so it was okay. But they're taught that too, Fiona.
Yes. Yes.
Because you're going to be an influential person when you grow up.
Well, this is true.
No, you're told you're going to be an influential person when you grow up because you went to Eton and because of your family and all the rest of this shit. And you are taught to read the newspaper, come up. They were able at conversation. Mind you, they were rather rebels, so probably not the best versions of these old Etonians, because we all used to roll about in the grass and laugh at this. And one of the things they managed to do, I know I've told Fiona this sometime, was we were all in North Devon at the time, and where I lived and where their families lived. And there was a big radio mast on the coast near Appledore. And there was a local building firm which had just put up a big for sale sign because it had got, 25 bungalows for sale or some kind of stuff like that. We nicked the for sale sign. And these guys, I was able to help a little bit, but they were quite strong. They roped it all the way up as far damn near the top of this radio mast. And so there was this radio mast for sale.
Yes.
We got in the local papers. Nobody ever discovered who did it. Well, probably people knew who did it. I mean, I know my father knew who did it for a second. I wasn't going to tell anybody. Probably their parents did. But so, I mean, they were quite suitably rebellious at times with things like that. But they said, no, we're told to do this. This is part of our getting up in the morning, go for the cold shower, dive into the swimming pool or whatever other kind of stuff it was, and then read two newspapers and have 3 points of conversation for when the housemaster talked to us.
Yes. Well, admittedly, this came in useful when my daughter wanted to know, how do I make friends? How do I do social? I didn't bring her up to be that sort of person, but when she was about 18 or 19 and off to university, it was like, how do I make friends with people? How do I break the ice?
Yes.
And we did actually go through this, and she learned consciously how to do it, which is a totally different matter from being trained from infancy.
Yes. Or even being trained at school, because these lads can go there, relatively speaking, quite young and right on puberty usually.
Yes.
So your insides are
completely
screwing your emotions, and your thinking is zip. And so they are trained at a time when they haven't properly been trained to be conscious yet.
No. And it's a terrible thing that the first thing they're consciously trained to do is exploit people.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And this is considered normal.
Worse than that, it's considered good.
Mm.
Yes. Yes.
But being conscious is really what it's about and what's important.
Yes.
Making conscious choices, and to use the one of the buzzwords, informed choices. But you won't make informed choices by listening to somebody else. You'll make informed choices by going and looking for things for yourself. You know, Fiona said horses' hooves grow like, you know, and Fiona said horses' hooves grow like this. So I'm going to say, well, yeah, okay, so I'll go and look it up.
Yeah.
And she won't be offended.
No.
But I
might
know.
learn.
Yeah. And we need to know because we've discovered it, not because we've read it somewhere or someone's told it to us.
And there again, it's a question of scripts. Are you living somebody else's script that they've told you?
Yeah.
Or have you gone off and written your own script?
Yeah. Yeah. And it comes in every bit of life. But it's about being conscious.
Yes.
And to be conscious, you're going to have to dive deep and just check out the whole of your innards and your past, your innards of your past.
Yes.
And
find those bits of soul that have been sort of pared off you over the years.
Yeah. Or squished or shoved in a cupboard under the stairs.
Yes.
And you have to bring them all back together because they're all really you.
Yes. And there's your soul retrieval.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And
not woo-woo at all.
No, that's what we do.
Yes.
And that's what coaches and psychotherapists do.
And shamans.
And of course shamans. And of course witchy people.
Yes.
Whatever you want to call them. And there are lots of people who do this. And it's really worth doing. We've both obviously done it. And we both continue to mentor and do it. You know, be mentored and do it again. Because you don't see, you see what you want to see. We're both writers as well. And you have to get somebody else to read your story.
You do.
Because you haven't seen all the bits that they will see.
You see the bits that you want to see.
And you know exactly why so-and-so's happened because you've got all that story in there, but they don't. They say, why did you do that then?
Yes. Yes. Even on the most mundane level, you know, you left 3 sentences out here and it doesn't make sense without them.
And do you remember when I was writing Our Woman? At one point I said, you know, and this had, and she walked across the 7 stepping stones, and it was really important, part of it. And then somewhere else, I think I said 9.
Yes.
And fortunately, Fiona said, do you mean 9 or 7? And since it was a real place, she said, last time I went there, it was 7.
Yes.
But you know.
You don't spot these things yourself because you know what you meant.
Yeah.
And you don't see the same things in your own soul because you live with it.
Yeah. And you've got used to those bits not being there or being squished or being this shape or this color or whatever.
Yes. I've joked about it with you before now. So I sat down one evening for a long chat one evening with your husband, Paul, who's also a psychotherapist. Yeah. And I came out of it with far more issues than I went in.
Yes.
Of course, I didn't come out with more issues than I'd gone in, but I came out knowing about more issues than I remembered when I went in.
Yes, yes.
And that's the important point. He brought them to my notice.
Yeah. And then the next thing to do is to find somebody who can help you find your way to grow through them.
Yes.
So that they no longer bother you. You know they're there. But they don't get in your way, they don't provide stumbling blocks. And on the odd occasion, when you suddenly find you're reacting in that way again, you know you're doing it. You go, Right. Whoa, just let me breathe 3 times and I'll be right with you back in the meeting. No, okay.
Yes.
I'm through that. And of course, you've got the confidence that there you are in a board meeting and you can actually say that and people aren't going to think he's lost the plot.
It actually makes people respect you far more.
It does. Yeah.
They respect that you are confident enough that you can reveal your weakness.
Yeah. I had
to turn that weakness into a strength and say, just whoa, breathe. Okay, I've sorted that one.
Yeah. Now, where were? Could you just
Yes.
say that? Could you just say that last sentence again for me, please? And you know, I mean, that, of course, is the other shamanic thing. That is when you've been through and done and got a power retrieval, because you don't feel weak, insecure, idiotic, stupid, or any of the other things, or embarrassed, that you've got to ask them to say that again.
No.
And one thing, I actually did this in a committee meeting I was at a couple of weeks ago, and somebody used the project manager used some jargon words that I thought, I don't think I've got the right concept here. So, whoa, can you just tell me what you mean by so-and-so? And I was actually watching everybody else's face around the meeting. And there was only one other person there who had an inkling of what he'd been talking about. But nobody else but me had said, whoa, I don't understand that one.
Yes.
And he explained, and I got a concept. And I said,
What
fine,
else?
that's fine, okay, let's go. You know, now I know what you're talking about.
God, I didn't have to ask, but now I know.
Yes, you could feel it. It was really funny. Yeah, one of them actually did say, thanks God you did ask. Just as you said. Yeah. And I hear somebody. Oh,
I did hear that.
Yes, we're playing with a sheepskin rug.
Good.
There, and deciding that we're going to have. You can see behind me. There's a chair with some sheepskins, black sheepskins, and she's underneath that, and she's doing this. She seems to have broken into the conversation, Fiona.
She has a little. She's probably telling us that we've been here for an hour. Pretty nearly.
It's well timed that we shut up.
Yes, let people go on about their lives.
Absolutely, indeed. So we'll see you all again next week. And small dilly coming up. I'm in process in getting a podcast going, a proper podcast that's going to go out on Deezer and Spotify and iTunes and God knows what kind of thing. And we're going to, some of it at least, we're going to be doing together, probably 50% of it, if not more. So look out for this, because this is the sort of thing that you can plug in and have a listen to on your commute.
Yes.
And we will be talking about interesting things. Possibly even horses, hooves, and cats. And
the interconnectedness of everything.
Yeah, indeed. And
yes.
What is it? Cabbages and kings, and why the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings.
Indeed.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.